Leora felt it the moment she woke, the faint ticking that never stopped, softer than blood in her ears, but as insistent as gravity. She pressed 2 fingers to the hollow, at the base of her throat, where a 10-millimeter disc, flush with the skin, translated each heartbeat into a pulse of indigo light. Nobody could see the glow in the morning glare, yet everyone in the Republic of Rhythms knew it was there, strobing beneath shirts and scarves, marking off the national currency, 1 beat at a time. An hour before dawn, a municipal siren sounded, a single low note that told citizens the day's levy had begun. Leora rose, dressed, and opened her apartment door to let the auditors pass the corridor. 2 uniformed tempo officers drifted along on magnetic skates, scanners extended like insect antennae. Their handheld readers pinged when they synchronized with a disc. A green glyph meant the wearer's tax had been debited. A yellow demanded review. A red bloom of light signaled arrears, and sometimes an arrest. The procedure took seconds. The humiliation lingered far longer. Leora's glyph flashed green. 4,326 heartbeats, the standard dawn tithe, withdrawn from her allotment. She exhaled, feeling lighter and cheaper at the same time. One day, she thought, the metronome will reach its limit, display a flat line, and I won't even know it's coming. Exactly the way Mother died, and Father 3 years later, both bankrupt to the state. But that morning, she had no room for gloom. She worked at the Metropolitan Calibratory, and today she would assist in installing the new Silverline firmware, code rumored to increase tax efficiency by another 4%. The Senate of Pulse, which set economic policy, called it an elegant refinement. The underground rumor mill called it lethal. She arrived at the calibratory through a spiral airlock that dampened electromagnetic interference. Hundreds of discs, sorted by age group, lay in vambraces along the walls. Technicians in white tunics drifted between them, adjusting parameters. Leora's supervisor, Orson Krat, beckoned. His own disc glittered through the thin cloth over his breastbone, blinking 3 times faster than hers. He'd volunteered for a stimulatory booster to inspire the techs by example, though everyone knew he just pocketed bonus beats. Silverline is ready, he said. You'll update Tower 4, Pediatrics. Children. Leora kept her voice flat. You object? She shook her head. Objection meant suspicion. Suspicion meant audit. Audit meant a downward revision of one's lifespan. Instead, she accepted the tablet and stylus. The screen displayed lines of code that would alter every child's disc. Optimize measurement intervals, tighten waveform thresholds, and, strangely, issue micro-impulses rumored to accelerate the heart slightly during sleep. Efficiency, Orson repeated, as though she'd questioned him aloud. Leora walked to Tower 4's central console and plugged in. The monitor showed hundreds of tiny heart signatures belonging to infants in maternity wards citywide, a delicate snowfall of data. She hesitated, stylus hovering, and caught a reflection of her eyes in the glass. They looked tired and older than 25. Her father's words echoed. They will take everything you let them measure. Before she could touch the screen, her palm buzzed. She jerked back, flinching as the stylus fell. The sensation hadn't come from the tablet, but from her disc. 3 soft pulses, then silence. A private signal. Everyone knew such signals existed, though nobody admitted to having received one. They meant contact from the silence front, the rebels who called themselves slowers. She recovered the stylus, feigned a sneeze, and wiped her eyes while scanning the shop floor. Nobody looked her way. The technicians kept programming. Crate preened. Auditors prowled with scanners. Still, the message was impossible to mistake. It summoned her to a place she'd only heard in whispers, the under-chancel, beneath the bones of the old cathedral, where sound died before it traveled a meter. She disabled her console for biometric fatigue and requested an early lunch. Crad approved with a smirk. He loved to flaunt a humane facade. Leora left the calibratory, but instead of heading to the cafe, she slipped into an elevator that listed no basement levels on its panel. She pressed the unmarked lower region with her thumb. The car descended past registered strata, doors opening onto darkness. The under-chancel smelled of mineral dampness and candle smoke. The cardiac implants of those gathered glimmered dimly, an illicit constellation. Some faces Leora knew. A nurse from her building, a courier, a violinist who'd vanished from the concert halls after refusing to play the official anthem of collection. Now she saw him beating his chest in slow thuds, like soft drum mallets. A woman stepped forward, older than Leora, her silver hair shaved on one side. The implant at her throat shone faintly violet, slower than any Leora had witnessed. 40 beats per minute, maybe fewer. "I'm Kesh," she said. "Welcome. You signaled me?" "We did. You share our concern for the children. You hesitate to install Silverline." Leora did not ask how they knew. Information traveled on circuits invisible to the state. "If the new code rolls out," Kesh continued, "the pediatric population will lose months of life in a single fiscal quarter. Your doubts make you valuable." "I'm a small cog," Leora said. "Small cogs turn great wheels." Kesh led her through wind-worn columns to a mat on the stone floor. "Sit. Listen to your blood." Around them, rebels lowered themselves to similar mats. Someone struck a bronze bowl. The tone glided through the chamber, losing volume until it disappeared into the rock. "We call the practice Galeen rhythm," Kesh whispered. "A method to govern one's own metronome. The state counts our beats. We slow them. We tax the tax." It sounded impossible. The discs were designed to detect interference. Any unnatural depressions triggered alerts. Yet the rebels in that cave radiated calm rather than fear. Their every movement seemed a fraction of the municipal tempo. "Close your eyes," Kesh instructed, guiding Leora's shoulders. "Inhale on a 5 count, exhale on an 8. Picture the disc as an obedient dog. Tell it to heel." Leora obeyed. The first breaths burned. Her mind raced. Orson would notice her absence. A corridor camera might tag her location. The auditors might trace the private signal. But the darkness and the low hum of controlled breathing surrounded her like warm cloth. She felt her chest expand, then contract, and with each cycle, the embedded disc clicked more slowly against her collarbone. A minute passed, or 5. She lost measure. At some point, silence engulfed her. Silence inside. The tick of the implant no longer distinct. Her heart didn't stop. She sensed the blood's slow swirl, but the mechanical witness fell behind, out of sync, like a bureaucrat whose quill couldn't keep pace with the spoken word. Kesh tapped her forehead. Open. The glowing disc on Leora's throat now flickered once. Pause. Again. She gasped. Her pulse had dropped to near 45 beats per minute. The implant should have unleashed a siren, flagged a red glyph. Instead, the faceplate showed a bland, neutral cyan. "We hacked the firmware," Kesh explained. "Your serial number was added to an exemption list. Temporary. It will hold 10 hours. Leora sat upright, suddenly dizzy yet euphoric. She felt spacious inside, as though her ribs had become a quiet cathedral, dwarfed by the echo of a single note. "You're proof we can free more citizens," Kesh said.
But the calibration tower remains the choke point. We need someone within. What do you expect? To broadcast a firmware patch, citywide. It will blind the tax readers for 1 week. Enough for us to teach Galeen rhythm to tens of thousands. After a week, they'll never recover the lost revenue without causing massacre, and they won't risk that. The Senate values stability over greed, barely, but enough. Leora's heart fluttered, then steadied. They'll accuse me. Perhaps, or perhaps we'll be many, indistinguishable in the quiet. Kesh offered a small data rod. Insert this the next time you connect to the pediatric console. It will auto-deploy. Do not open the file, it self-corrupts. The data rod looked harmless, a sliver of glass. Yet it could cripple an empire built on pulse. Leora tucked it beneath her sleeve, uncertain whether the slower thump in her chest belonged to fear or daring. Back on the surface, afternoon traffic surged. Joggers in bright tax vests pounded pavement to earn extra beats for the evening toll. Caffeinated workers exited kiosks, hearts drumming faster than footsteps. Leora felt like an island within a white-capped sea. Every passerby vibrated at double her pace. She saw the cost in their eyes, a frantic calculation of life traded for comfort. She returned to the calibratory. Crate hardly glanced up, occupied scolding an assistant for losing 0.02% signal fidelity. Leora sat at her station. When she inserted the data rod, a single green bar flickered across her screen and vanished. No alarm triggered. No anomaly logged. The patch was in play. Yet she could not ignore the nagging voice. What if the code fails? What if children flatline? She almost pulled the rod out to reverse the send, but too late. The system had already propagated. That night she lay awake, counting heartbeats. When the daily curfew siren moaned, she braced for a raid. None came. Eventually she surrendered to sleep, the new, slower rhythm lulling her into dreams where clocks melted like wax. At dawn, the city's official anthem blared through every speaker, a martial march set precisely at 120 beats per minute. Citizens lined boulevards for the weekly grand collection, when auditors siphoned an extra tithe to fund military ventures. Tempo officers glided among them, scanners raised. Today, though, something was off. Leora, standing in the crowd, felt her own pulse hovering around 50. Those nearby seemed slower too. A mother cradled an infant whose disc glowed a lazy lavender, far outside the proper gold spectrum. The scanners began to stutter. Some emitted warbles instead of pings. Others displayed nonsensical glyphs. An officer struck his device in frustration. On a tower screen above the plaza, the aggregate beat count, usually scrolling upward like a bullish stock, hesitated, dropped, then plummeted. Gasps rose from the multitude. Leora spotted Kesh across the square. The older woman offered a barely perceptible nod. Rebels had spread through the population, teaching Galeen rhythm in laundries, metro cars, network forums. The slowdown had arrived ahead of schedule. A siren howled, a different pitch than any Leora had heard, metallic and panicked. Drones vaulted from rooftop launchers, sniffing for anomalies. They locked onto clusters where readings had fallen dangerously low. Rotors sliced the air above Leora's head. She braced to be seized, but the drone veered, its sensors confused by contradictory reports, one moment detecting bradycardia, the next fielding no data at all. The data rod's code had not merely blinded the network. It fed it static, weaponized bureaucracy against itself. High on the civic rostrum, a senator of Pulse activated a bullhorn. Citizens, remain calm. Technical difficulties will be resolved shortly. Resume standard rhythm. Murmurs answered. Resume standard rhythm. What a command. as though hearts were factory presses to be dialed magically. Leora heard laughter, brittle at first, then swelling. Some placed hands over their implants and bowed as if at prayer. Others beat slow tempos on their chests, a deliberate taunt. The drones whirred helplessly, their scanners chasing ghosts. Then the unscripted happened. The great clock tower at the square's north edge told the hour, but its peal seemed elongated, stretching the minute between strikes. Whether sabotage or resonance from thousands of slow hearts, the gears protested, and the clock froze with its hands at 47 minutes past the hour. Time itself had hiccuped. The Senate guards advanced, shock staves crackling. Kesh stepped onto a planter, raising 2 fingers. The crowd fell silent, not through fear, but by shared intention. She inhaled, and her chest rose deliberately slow. Exhale, slower. In that hush, each person matched her, and the plaza became one enormous lung. Bum, 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 bum. 2 beats per breath cycle. Leora sensed the air thicken into a living organism, a collective body whose pulse dwarfed any single tax ledger. The guards hesitated as their own hearts betrayed them, instinctively sinking to the slower cadence. Their staves flickered out. The senator shouted, face scarlet. Words skittered across the plaza, but lost momentum, as if dragged backward by viscous time. He slumped against the podium, dizzy from his own accelerated blood, colliding with ambient calm. Minutes, or eternities, passed. Finally, the senator tore the topper from his uniform, exposing the disc on his chest. It blinked a frantic crimson, nearly 140 beats per minute. No officer could maintain that pace when the air around him pulsed at half. He collapsed to his knees, clutching the device as though it were eating his heart, rather than measuring it. A child giggled. The sound broke the stalemate. Someone else laughed, and then joy rippled outward. Unprogrammed, untaxed, unpredictable. Drones lost altitude. Some crashed like drunken beetles. Their sensors could not reconcile laughter with sabotage. That evening, the Senate of Pulse convened an emergency session. Rumor said half the chamber required stimulants to keep their hearts at the mandated legislative tempo. Without unwavering metrics, they were bureaucrats floating in fog, and fog breeds concessions. Official communiqué arrived the next morning. The Republic hereby suspends biological levy until a satisfactory recalibration can be achieved. Citizens are requested, note, requested, to maintain healthful rhythms for communal welfare. Enforcement will pause during this period of civic trust. No end date given, because none existed. In the under-chancel, rebels celebrated with tea, not champagne. Alcohol spiked pulses. Kesh poured Leora a cup of jasmine so fragrant it seemed to bloom in the cold air. You did it, Kesh said. We did. Now the hard part. Keeping freedom from turning into chaos. Leora nodded. They'll try implants again. New tech. New rationale. Of course. But the population remembers their own agency now. They've tasted a heartbeat unpriced. Leora sipped her tea. For the first time since childhood, she heard nothing mechanical inside her, only the honest lub-dub of living flesh. It felt fragile, yes, but also sovereign. She imagined newborns arriving into a world where the cradle lullaby was not a revenue stream but a promise. You are more than your measure. Weeks passed. Markets wobbled, adjusted, pivoted to voluntary contributions. Some citizens, anxious without external accounting, still visited kiosks to donate beats for public works. But the kiosk loungers accepted the contributions by measuring fingertip pulses, not implants. Symbolic, consent-based. Others refused to share at all, preferring to grow vegetables and barter. The Senate, stripped of automatic tithe, had no force to compel them. Kesh founded circles of slow in parks, where children learned Galeen rhythm in between games of hoverball. They treated it not as rebellion, but as art. Teachers discovered calmer classrooms. Clinics reported lowered cases of stress arrhythmia. Without the constant urgency of extraction, the city seemed to breathe again. One afternoon, Leora walked past the old clock tower. Artisans reclad its four faces in mirrored glass. Instead of numbers, each panel bore a single phrase: "The moment is yours." Beneath, a plaque read, "Rededicated Year of the Slow Heart." She continued to the calibratory. The building, deserted, would become a conservatory for plants that preferred soft humidity and softer footfalls. She unlocked a side door and climbed to Tower 4. The pediatric console, dust-coated, still ran an idle screen. She powered it down for good, then removed her own disc with trembling hands and a laser scalpel. The procedure hurt, but less than she'd expected. Like plucking a thorn she'd forgotten was poison. When it was done, she held the disc to her ear. For the first time, it made no sound because it was unplugged from life. She left it on the console and descended the stairs. Outside, dusk painted the sky a serene violet, the same color her implant had glowed the day she learned to slow. She pressed 2 fingers to the hollow of her throat and felt the steady, dignified march of an unmetered heart. Each beat still nudged her closer to death. Nothing could alter that arithmetic. But the sum, she realized, had become her own to spend, lend, or squander. She chose to give this one to the moment, this one to the wind, this one to the unnamed future. And she walked on, counting nothing, hearing only the quiet thunder that proved her alive.